Hey, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, your founder and your host, and today I'm joined again by Eddie Tate, my buddy. Yeah. So good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We're going to talk a little bit about intentionality and how Eddie has invested in his future self, right? Yeah. Because that is what Next Third, Best Third's about, Eddie, right? Yeah. There's 5 pillars. There's your thought life. There's physical condition, there's emotional well-being, relationships, which you and I were talking about earlier, so powerful, and then the lies we believe, or the things that haunt us, right? Shame and things like that. What I love about you is that you've got this long history, and here you are at age 54, and you're going all for it right now. You know, where so many guys in their 50s are starting to, figure like, how do I plan to get out of here and shut down? Here you are. It's like you're doubling down.
It's how I'm wired in one way, but it's also, I think a misnomer of the way society thinks about retiring or coming into that last 30 of your life. It's like, okay, it's time to slow down, sit down, and rest. It's like, well, I've rested enough because I do it with intention. I'm not dead. I'm going to go until I'm dead because I've been created for something. That doesn't mean it stopped. Hey, you've got purpose in your life for about half, 2/3 of your life, and then we're done with you.
No, that's insane.
No.
We said this before on air, is that just from modern medicine and science, you're going to live to like a lot longer, right? Into your 80s for sure.
Oh yeah, 87 is the average male.
Right? That's the target now.
Yep.
So it's not a matter of, am I going to live? It's how you're going to live, right?
That's the biggest thing. It's not if, it's how.
Yeah.
And it's intentional. You have to live with intentionality. You have to know that there's something coming.
Okay.
Because if I only live based off of what I've done or what I'm doing and I have no vision for tomorrow, then once I'm not doing that anymore, I'm either lost, confused, or feeling behind because I haven't done any type of intentional preparation. Not just in physical things around me, but mentally, emotionally. I mean, am I physically, with intentionality, stepping into my next phase of life?
That's right.
Am I emotionally, am I mentally, am I spiritually? In every way, am I actually intentionally looking forward and building towards that? You have to.
You have to. So you came from, and we don't have to go too far in the past, but you had a full life. I mean, you're a father of 5 daughters, crazy. But so you've been married how long?
25 years.
25 years, father of 5. You've been in ministry for years.
Yeah.
You've been in business.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now, like over the last few years, to really invest in the future, Eddie?
I mean, I'm writing, like you said.
Now that you just can't throw that out. I mean, this guy. You said earlier, well, I'm a writer, and then you kind of back down. No, you're prolific at it. So.
I'm writing constantly.
Yeah.
There's been a real opening up in my ability to write and just all the stuff that's coming out of me.
So in what time span has this really opened up?
So I wrote my first book 5.5 years ago.
Okay, so you were almost 50 when you wrote your first book.
Yeah, and it was a struggle.
Yeah.
I had trouble sitting down, focusing on writing. I had audio recorded and had to have somebody help me transcribe it and do all the writing side. We went over this, but a series of events happened. I ended up finding an old writing from when I was a 12-year-old that I'd written a fantasy book, and it was 5 pages in a notebook, and that was all I could get out at 12. But when I read it, I thought, there's something here. And I decided I thought, I want to write this book. I was in transition of job. There's a lot of transition going on, so I had a little bit of extra time. So I sat down at the end of our kitchen table and just started writing. And I don't know what happened, but I wrote 90,000 words in a month.
So my story about, fulfilling dreams from 11 years old. But at 12 years old, something inside of you said, I'm going to be a writer.
Yep.
And you went almost 40 years, 30 some years, right? Late 38 years or so. And that 12-year-old writer came to life.
100%.
I love that.
Yeah. And not only came to life, we've talked about this. think a lot of times when we look back on our childhood, we think those were childish things. And they were seeds of what was supposed to happen in your life at some point. I didn't nurture the seeds, but when I finally saw that they were seeds and I started nurturing those, they have sprouted into a forest.
Yeah.
I can't stop writing. I've got 3 fantasy books. I've got my first book. I've got 3 other full books written out, about 30 to 40,000 words. Probably got 4 different curriculums, 2 courses, and probably 50 devotionals, PDFs of like how to get past this one thing, like how-tos. Probably got 50 of those that are they're very, very packed full of, you're going to put some action to this. Yeah. But I mean, I just can't stop writing. It's just, I feel like everything about who I am is able to come out in words.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing. And all that material is really over the past 5 years or so.
5 years. I mean, I would honestly say the past 2.5 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I had told you the story. I mean, it's coming out so much that I had a book I was ready to finish. I had a 5-hour block of time. This is great. I have all this time to write. I sat down. I thought, I had this other idea. I thought I was going to jot a note down on the idea. 5 hours later, I had a 30,000 page, 80% of the book written on this new idea. It's a little frustrated because I thought I wanted to finish that, but I ended up finishing both in the next 3 weeks.
See, I hope guys don't skip over this or gloss over this because you're writing, right? The thing about it is there's something inside of every man.
Yes.
Right? That could have been a latent dream, a dream, like say the seed. I love that. Something in your childhood, something in the early years, something that you really cherished. Yes. And that can come to life at age 50, 60 years old. Right?
I believe that if you think about plants and trees and things like that, there are seeds that you'll plant that within a day you see something sprout on the ground. There's some that it may take 6 months before you see anything because it's building a root system. Like seeds have a germination time themselves. I believe purpose does too. And I believe a lot of times as a child, we see those seeds without even realizing what they are.
Yeah.
And then as we grow up, we begin to believe they were childish thoughts and dreams. But it's like, no. You're missing the fact that you actually saw something you were created for. You just may not have understood the timing on that.
Right.
Because I think the writing thing, could I have stewarded that and gone after that more? I feel like I tried a few times over the years and it never clicked. It just never felt right. Could I have pressed in harder? Maybe. But I look at it now that I've stepped into it and said, you know what? I feel like this is something that the root system was built so deeply in me that when I finally broke ground, everything I'm writing is me. It's me coming out. Well, there was a lot of roots to build before I could actually express those.
I love that picture because, again, sometimes we think you plant something and you're going to start seeing it grow right away.
You're going to see it right away.
But the healthiest, the great oaks and the things like that, they do the roots first.
They grow down and wide way before they grow up.
That's right. That is such a good analogy.
Yeah.
I love that picture.
And it's because I've had the disappointment. I mean, what man hasn't been disappointed in himself from either his self-reflection or other people telling him, hey, you haven't done this in your life. And sometimes that's great accountability. Oh man, you're right. I'm just not being intentional with what's in my hands. But often I think we get disappointed about things that aren't supposed to be cultivated yet. They're supposed to be allowed to nurture so that when the timing comes, it comes to its fruition. Because if everything that we had dreams about all happened right away, then what's the second and third of your life about? It's like, well, then everything's been done.
Yeah.
No, there's seeds that are planted for different seasons of your life. And I'm finding that in this season, writing, a call to men, just who I am in business. I mean, I'm more excited about business in a way that I've never been. I've always been really successful in corporate. Get me in a corporate environment, I'll come in and change all kinds of things, scale it 500%, no problem. I'm doing my own thing right now.
Yeah.
And it's just different.
Yeah.
But I used to think, looking at everybody else that was doing it, I'm just not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
No.
working with the guys like we both do, I find a lot of guys, especially when they're hitting about your age, is they've been on this track, trying to build, right? And all of a sudden they find themselves empty nesters. Yeah. The kids are moved out, they're there and they're not connecting, they're not networking anymore because they're really starting to coast.
Right.
It's, the average age of a Fortune 500 CEO is 56, but that's only 500 companies. And most guys, by the time they're 56, their earnings in their mind, it's like, I'm going to coast down.
Right.
But there was, who was it? I read saying that a man is most influential in his 60s through age 70. That's the decade he's most influential.
Wow.
The second one is 70s to 80s.
Wow. Shoot, I've got to wait a few years.
But
that's amazing though.
Yeah, it's amazing. But most guys are they're like going, okay, I'm not networking. I'm kind of coasting. I'll play my golf. I'll go fishing, whatever it is, and that's all good. I'm not saying that, but they're not. I used to say they're not dreaming. I like to use the term daydream because a daydream is more intentional.
Yes, it is.
A dream's random. A daydream is you're like going, what if?
Yeah.
Or maybe I could.
Yeah.
And I love that. And when I was a kid in Catholic school, the nuns would slap me in the back of the head saying, no, you're just a daydreamer. And so I got to the point thinking, well, daydreaming was bad. Oh man, wow. I'm daydreaming like crazy now at this in my 60s.
I had a great mentor of mine. I live off analogies. I think a lot of men do, but analogies speak to me. You can tell me in plain words. I'm like, I think I get that. Give me an analogy. It's like, there it is. I understand. Yeah. Just a great business mentor at this time. And he said, make sure that you're not turning the lights out on your house so that you sit alone in a room when you're finally at your end. Hmm. He said, make sure that you're building onto your house and turning every light on. And it was just this idea of so many people over years that just start turning lights off in the rooms that they're not using anymore. Wow. Instead of building on another wing and building on another room and turning all those lights on because it's like, no, there's more. There's more. And that analogy for me spoke to me because I had kind of been processing with him, this is my plan to do this. And it was this, I'm doing this to this point of not having to do anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember he said, that's a really sad life that you're working to not do anything.
When I asked you earlier, before we started filming, just, catch me up a little bit on what's going on. Your life is so full. I mean, and I love that. I don't like to use the word busy.
No,
Full's a better word.
Full's a really good word.
So you're writing all the time.
Yep.
But tell us what some of the other things that you're doing.
We live multi-generationally. My mom lives with us. 4 of my children live with us. I have 1 that's married out of the house now. So we've got everybody in the home. So family on its own, first priority. Yeah. And we put a lot of intention to it. We have 1 night a week that the whole family comes and they can bring friends, everybody. And that is a non-negotiable. And probably 2 or 3 days a week, we do other things with the family. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very much the focus of what we do. But I'm still on the leadership team of Bethel Austin. So I'm still very active in the church. Mm-hmm. I have a ministry that I co-founded with one of my best friends, Forged Men, and it's a men's ministry. We're actually opening up a side of that's going to be focused on not all of the writings, but a lot of the writings. We have a Forged Men book we're about to finish. Okay. Curriculums, courses, things like that. So that takes a lot of time. Yeah. I've got my own products that I've got my own books I'm writing. I've got my own things I'm trying to help with families, just men and families. And then I work full time.
So it's the Eddie Tate platform.
It's the Eddie Tate. Yeah. Okay. It'll be eddietate.com when it's actually launched, but it's Eddie Tate branded. It's funny. My fantasy book that I wrote and the other 2 that I'm about to get done, they're under my pen name, E.W. Tate. And I just felt like I was supposed to do a pen name for my fantasy books. And then everything that's me, which is more who am I and who do I influence. That's Eddie Tate.
Actually, I could see E.W. Tate on the cover. That fits.
Yeah, it does. For a fantasy book, it's perfect. Yeah. But then I work full time for insurance company. It's Retirement Realized. We do annuities, and I help agents get good at what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in charge of bringing them into our world and helping them succeed. So I do that that's kind of a full-time job.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's all I do. And then I just do my world, because I think it's also very important, especially for men. I have my family that I do, and then I have my stuff that I do. I think it's important. I think that can get out of balance. I think a lot of men become selfish with it.
Yeah.
I'm intentional with it. I'm very intentional with my time. Mm-hmm. I make sure that it doesn't get out of the priority steps. And priorities shift. Like and people have to realize that they shift. There's seasons for everything.
That's right.
But we are very intentional about what we put our time to. My kids have been raised. It's kind of funny. If I were to bring my kid on right now and go, hey, what's the most important thing in dad's life? God. What's the next most important thing? Mom. What's next? Us. What's next? Everything else. And it's like we raise them to have intentional thinking.
Yeah.
Because that's how I do life. I just do life with intention. I rest and I do non-productive things intentionally.
I love that.
Because too many men, we just talked about this, men can get bored, but that's usually the effect of them not doing something they should be doing.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually don't get bored, but boy, I take my veg time. I don't mind sitting down and watching a movie, watching a show with my wife over a few weeks, but it's intentional. I do it on purpose because I know if I give myself a little bit of time there, my effectiveness is really productive over here.
And that's so wise, Eddie. It's so wise. I know in my life as I'm working my pillars, right? Mm-hmm. So I've got the 5 pillars and I get challenged. I get challenged by the guys in my life saying, are you working your pillars, And sometimes I'm like, I got to go back, and do it. But like for physical, I know that you're a martial arts and you're very fit and everything. For me, physical, I've put on some weight, but I'm very intentional about what I eat. Right. I'm very intentional about working out. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is I'm a great sleeper. Sleep is so important because to invest in the future David, right? Yeah. So when you said rest, for me, I sleep really good.
I'm the wrong person to talk about that. My doctor in Reading found there's 3% of the human population that actually doesn't do well with a lot of sleep.
Wow.
And I'm one of them. If I sleep 6 hours or more, I'm exhausted the whole day.
Really?
My sweet spot is 4 to 6 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've always been like that.
Well, good on you.
Yeah, I mean, but it's funny. I used to fight that. It's like I'm supposed to get this much sleep, and I was having issues. And my doctor's like, he actually didn't believe it at first, and then he did the research, came back and said, you know what? I think you're one of the weird ones.
Yeah. So again, it's next third best third. When I started it, I mentioned this to you off air, but when I started this, we thought that we were going to be attracting a certain age group,
right?
And it's going to be guys your age and older, late 40s and older.
Yeah.
We're finding that's not trending, and it's not trending. We're trending real young, which I'm excited about because that means guys they're thinking about it. Who am I going to be 20 years from now?
Right.
Who am I going to be 30 years from now? But the disappointing thing for me is the guys my age who aren't really engaging.
Right.
And it actually frightens me because I think that these guys have bought into, it's too late. They're complacent. Yeah. Or they're like, I get this with guys who, I talk to them about their physical condition. They're like, I can't exercise because I've got arthritis or, that's just so backwards thinking.
Yeah.
The reason you're struggling is because you're not exercising and taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But it just breaks my heart because I see these guys and I'm like going, man, you can do so much more. I mean, here you are, you're 54 years old. You've got multiple full-time gigs. Mm-hmm. I mean, your full-time job, right?
Yeah.
That's huge. I know your ministry is big and your writing is prolific.
Right.
Right. And then you're still on staff or you're a volunteer, and I know that is more than
know how that works.
I know how that works. And yet you're so invested. And I just think, man, it's so inspiring.
And, the sad thing is when I think what I hear from men a lot of times is it's too late or it's too hard.
Yeah.
Or I already know that. It's like there's something in their pride that tells them, I don't need anything different. Yeah. It's like, but your life isn't satisfied because you keep reaching out to try to touch things for change, but you're not making a change. And there's this pride that's telling you that you're okay. I mean, you'd mentioned the physical. I'm not in right now, but I got in the worst physical shape I've personally ever been in.
Really?
And it goes to comparison in a flipped way.
Yeah.
In my worst physical shape, I'm probably more physically adept than 90% of the people I know 10 years younger than me or older. Because my physical and adaptability was so high.
Yeah.
So I just was like, well, I'm already so far ahead. I'm okay. So I just started getting lazy. I mean, it's a reality.
Oh, so you were comparing yourself
in a flipped way.
In a flipped way, and you're saying, I'm good.
I'm kind of like, I'm in the top 5%.
Yeah.
Even for guys 10 years my junior.
Right.
I don't need to work that hard anymore. Oh God, what a lazy way to think. And honestly, it's dishonoring how I was created and who I'm called to be.
That's right.
I'm not agreeing with who I'm supposed to be. So a few months back, I got diagnosed with diabetes, pre-diabetic. Okay. Actually, my numbers were so high that I have a couple of diabetic friends that were astounded that I'm not like in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I was even kind of like, okay, if my numbers are this high, why don't I feel as bad as I should? Mm-hmm. And so, I go to the doctor. They're like, oh, we're going to put you on this medication and this. And I said, nope, you're not. I was like, I said, if I got myself here, I can get myself out.
That's right.
Now, I'm not an anti-medicine guy.
No.
But I'm going to go to medicine if I have to, or if I've tried another way and it doesn't work. So they said, okay, we need to test your numbers in 3 more months. And if you're not at least, so my numbers were 12.3. 6 is the highest you should be. 7 is pre-diabetic. My friends that are worried about it were at 10, like 9 and 10. I was at 12.3. They said, if you're not at least at an 8, we're going to have to put you on insulin. Not just medication. We're going to have to give you insulin. Okay. 2 months in, I had them test it. I was at a 7.2. I just had them test it again. I'm at a 6.5.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's 5 months.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no. I have to be intentional to reclaim who I'm supposed to be, not who I'm allowing myself to accept.
We could go on just a trail on diabetes, right? And diabetes, was almost unheard of 50 years ago. And we see where we are now, and it is 100% diet and exercise related. Yep. That's what it is. And yet we go, and again, I'm not against medicine either.
Right.
I'm like you. But we go and we take that saying, okay, instead of me doing the work,
this is easier than
absolutely
good choices.
But as you and I know, and I see it in the guys who there's a friend of mine who's going through a lot. He's been going through a lot for a while, and he decided that he was going to take the pillar of getting in shape, right? So he was heavy. A year ago, he started on this journey saying, okay, I'm going to invest in my physical self. And he's about your age.
Yeah.
He's doing Ironmans now.
Oh, come on. I love it.
I mean, he's totally transformed his body. And the rest of his stuff is still struggling. He's got issues like so many guys do, right? But he's overcoming, and he's inspiring me, Yeah.
I've lost 22 pounds since this started. In the middle of it, I tore my calf muscle, which that kind of shuts you down from doing much exercise.
Yeah.
Does it? I just change the exercise and I adapt my eating to help me even more. It's like I can either choose to allow my circumstances and my laziness to dictate how I'm going to be every day, or I can wake up and be who I was created to be and live that out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm big on self-talk, affirmations, motivate. I'm big on that. It's like, hey, if you need to put something in your life to remind you, do it. If you need a friend, have them call you. Call them. If you need a poster, put a poster up. Mm-hmm. If you need a book to read, I've got a dozen for you to read. Yeah. It's like there are ways to get past where we're at. It just takes effort and intentionality.
Right. So your life, truly, I'm not just saying this because you're my friend and sitting here, your life really is an inspiration, right? It is. Because men need to look at someone like you and say, if he can do it, You know,
trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do
right?
it.
I mean, I know you a little bit, but I mean, me too. I mean, I know me, and to be in the shape and the place I'm in at age 66, here I am. You know, I'm an author. I'm writing. I'm a full-time pastor. I'm a realtor. I'm a podcaster, right? And I'm in acting class. And this is at age 66.
Yeah, I love it.
So we're not just throwing this out as theory, right? We're living this. But every guy can do this.
Every guy's supposed to do
That's
this,
right.
not just could.
That's good.
Every man is called to step further into who they're supposed to be.
That's right.
Like, you don't plant a tree so it'll grow 6 feet and stop.
No.
You plant it because it's got unlimited potential as long as you keep watering it, keep putting it in the right environment.
Yeah.
That's all we have to do with ourselves every day.
Yeah.
Like, give yourselves the ability to step into who you've been designed for.
And I would say this too, Eddie, is just, I know you like analogies, but taking a step and looking at that tree and taking an assessment of it and saying, oh, for it to really flourish, it needs some pruning.
Oh, we could spend a whole lot of time on pruning.
Yeah.
Pruning, I mean, the Bible's very clear. He prunes the ones he loves.
Yeah.
Which means it's for purpose, not for punishment. Sometimes the bad things have to be pruned off, but if you actually know anybody that knows, one of my favorite movies as a kid was Karate Kid.
Okay.
And the whole bonsai bushes and he's clipping them. And if you think about it, he was pruning it not because it was unhealthy. He was pruning it to have a shape that was inside of it already.
Oh, come on.
So in other words, the pruning was to bring out its identity. Because if he'd have left it just to grow random, it'd just be a random tree that had no true shape to it that showed what was inside of it.
Yeah.
I love that analogy because it's so... I bought a bonsai tree as a 14-year-old. Like, I'm going to do this. I killed it. It was horrible. But I got another one and I started pruning it. And I remember thinking, I'm actually learning something. I was heavy into martial arts, so I was getting a lot of good teaching at that time. But I was very blessed and lucky, I would say, to have an instructor early on that understood. He was not a Christian man at all. In fact, he was a Buddhist, but he understood identity and purpose. And every martial art class, he taught that as much as he taught any moves.
Yeah.
And it just got so ingrained in me that it's part of who I am in the way I talk and the way I teach. But he's like, everything that you do is because it's already inside of you. I can't teach you anything new that you weren't created to know already. Which I was like, that's an amazing concept.
It is. And I love that you glean that at such a young age, and you gleaned it from, the martial arts, right? And everything. I spoke a couple of weeks ago on Father's Day at the church, and it was on this. It was on this very thing about pruning. It was,
I love this.
training up a child and all that, and about pruning. And as you're talking, I want the guys to know that there's still a guy inside of you. There's still somebody there who you haven't discovered yet.
Right.
See, I mentioned Bill Bright and Campus Crusade and the 4 spiritual laws. And one thing that they started out with and I never liked was God loves you and he has a wonderful plan for your life. Like there's one plan. I hated that. I'm sorry.
Hey.
But it's the truth. I was like going, God loves you, but there's not one plan, right?
No.
Destiny is not a destination, right? And so at 50 years old, you're pruning away and you're discovering who's in there.
Yeah.
And I used the quote from Michelangelo. And they asked Michelangelo about his famous statue, David.
Yeah.
You know this one, right?
Such good.
He said, I did not carve David. David was in the marble. I just took away everything that wasn't David.
Yes.
Isn't that great?
Oh, I love that's one of my favorite quotes, the way he said that. I've come up with a saying that I've used for years, and it's, God loves you exactly where you are, and he loves you enough not to leave you there.
That's good.
Because whether you're lacking, whether you're fully thriving, he loves you where you are.
Yeah.
Like that's God's nature. He just loves you.
Yeah.
But regardless on how good or bad you're doing, he loves you enough not to leave you there. Which means even if you're thriving, there's more.
I love that. See, that's the thing. So some guys are complacent in their success. Success
is an actual harder thing to navigate than failure.
Yes. I've seen that with the guys, and they're there and they've arrived. They're good. They got their 401k. They got all their, their portfolios. Everything's good. They're living in a great house. They might even have a great relationship, with their spouse, all the things. But challenge them to say there's more. There's a you that you haven't discovered yet. There's a you that hasn't come out of the marble yet.
Yeah.
That's a hard sell sometimes, right?
It's like taking an SAT and doing page 1, checking all the boxes, going, I finished.
Yeah.
It's like, there's more pages.
That's right.
Just because you checked all the boxes on the front page doesn't mean you finished.
So pruning, sometimes you do it purposefully yourself. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it comes from other guys in your life who point things out.
Right.
But sometimes it comes at you through hardships in
100%.
life. My story, some of it.
Yeah.
And when my wife left 7.5 years ago, and it just devastated me. I mean, I had lost everything. I had lost my business prior to that. Went through bankruptcy. I was going through bankruptcy. She leaves. I'm there, and I'm like going, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And I've shared this before, but I was at that point, Eddie, where I was just on a walk, and I was going, this sucks. Nothing's going to be the same. This isn't what I planned on. Future events, future family, births and marriages and holidays, nothing's going to be the same. You know? And the Lord spoke to me, and he said, but it could be better. And that birthed something. It opened something up, right?
That's good.
And the pain that I went through in the process that I went through, a few months later, I came up with, I'm going to make the next third my best third.
Yeah. I love that line. Yeah. That's great. Every situation we go through will become a testimony.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks testimony is only the good things. No, everything we go through becomes a testimony.
Yeah.
What is your decision today testifying for your future person?
Yeah.
Because you will look back at some point and go, that was when things went down or I made a choice to go forward. Yeah. I mean, every decision.
Let me ask you this. We could just talk about so much, right? But for the guys listening, obviously you've got such a heart to see men thrive.
Yes.
You're fully vested in that.
Yeah.
And I love that. Men need other men.
Yes. Specifically
in this area of pruning and calling them into their higher self or their next version of themselves, right?
Right.
Can you speak into that?
Yeah. I mean, the verse that, of course, that iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another. If you actually think about that, that's not a pleasant process.
No.
And I think a lot of people avoid the process because it's unpleasant. But the reality is that if we try to do this alone, we are at the whim of whatever we can handle or what we're being influenced by.
Wow.
The voices in your life have to be the ones that are calling you higher. Now, I have a group of men in my life. Sometimes they stand in the place of a mentor, a father in my life. Sometimes I'm the father in their life. And often we're walking this thing together. But I'm intentional about having them there and bringing them into my situations.
Yeah.
I will admit, early on in this journey of really trying to cultivate those type of relationships, it's hard to get vulnerable and be honest with people because you're going to get hurt. You are going to put your heart out and say, hey, I trust you, my friend. I'm going to give you access to something. And he's going to abuse it and hurt it.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be every relationship. But if you think that it's not going to happen, you may be setting yourself up for some real heartache.
You and I both have been full-time pastors. And I found it very, very hard to be vulnerable early on in my ministry time because, if you told somebody, some guy said, man, I'm struggling with porn.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with alcohol. And that you kicked out of the church.
Yeah.
That was
how can you lead?
Right. So that was the thing. But and that could be the case with guys who are not in ministry. I mean, they're just, how can I really trust somebody? But the thing about it is it does take risk. And you just don't jump into it either. You got to cultivate it.
No, you don't find a guy in the street and be like, hey, here's my life.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out, use discernment, if you don't have discernment on something, use time and use history. Look at their current relationships. Look at yours. See how they're going to work together. I've had relationships where, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lifelong relationship. And I got hurt. I mean, I told you recently about losing our home and everything out of a 25-year relationship. Like, it's like, okay, it was a great relationship. And then
until it wasn't.
Devastated.
Yeah.
Well, I have a choice at that point. Do I shut down and not believe in people, not believe I'm worth it, they're worth it?
Yeah.
Do I allow that to impact the way I'm going to live my life with other men? Or do I say, wow, I hope you find what you need because I know what I have.
Yeah.
And I move forward.
You know, you and I both believe that what men need is they need not to be... You and I both believe that what men need is not to be shamed or, partnering with the, accusation, because there's enough of that, right?
Yes.
And so we believe in calling the gold out, lifting guys up. But when we're talking about intimate relationships with guys, that iron sharpening iron, we don't need yes men.
Oh, it's the worst thing you can have.
See, that's the difference here.
Yeah.
I want to speak into strangers in the men's life and speak positive and encourage them and build them up because they've been broken down. But you and I in relationship, I don't need you saying, oh, you're doing great.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a church culture that I was a part of. It's an amazing culture, but there wasn't real accountability or feedback. And it was hard. It was early on in me really starting to get my voice as a minister. And I'd do something and be like, hey, how was it? Oh my gosh, it was the best thing I've ever heard. I'm like, all right, somebody else. Because I'm like, I want true feedback. If it truly was that, that's great. But that's not feedback. Mm-mm. And I don't need men in my life that do that with man, you're just amazing. Great. Do you know me at all? I know I'm amazing. But there's also chinks in my armor. There's decisions I've made. There's thoughts I have.
Yeah.
There's times I need to be kicked in the butt and told to get up and get going.
Yeah. Now, I don't want that from some stranger.
No.
Because he doesn't have the right.
There's no relational equity.
Right.
There's not the trust. You haven't built that outside of a divine God moment.
Right.
You haven't earned the ability to speak into my life that way.
See, I love that. I was just about to say that. It's one of my favorite phrases.
Yeah.
Earning the right to speak into someone's life.
Earning the right to speak into life. And often it comes by opening yourself up for that first.
Yes.
Like if you and I are in a relationship and I'm like, hey, I've got something to tell you, but I've never allowed myself to hear from you, you're not going to receive from me.
Yeah.
Somebody has to take the first step in the dance.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because there are guys like you and I where we haven't hung out a lot, but yet I would totally trust you.
Yeah.
Like if you
100%.
came up to me and said, David, I see this.
Same thing.
And again, that's, you've earned it. Maybe not in intimacy with me, but you've earned it because I've observed and I know you, right?
Same.
And vice versa.
Yeah, understood.
But, you mentioned the verse in the Bible as, iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. You do a ministry called Forged.
Forged Men.
So you actually forge knives.
Yes.
So when you're sharpening, what does that look like?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of that whole analogy of that ministry is you're taking something in one shape, and the process of getting it to where it's supposed to be means there is heating up times, changing its understanding of itself. Mm. There is cutting away parts of it because they're not part of the original shape that should have been there. There's a hammering, there's a shaping, there's a grinding, there's a sanding, there's a reheating, there's a cooling.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, and I make the joke with people. I'm like, we think about that verse. It's like, ask the iron how it feels about being sharpened.
Yeah.
The iron is not going to be like, this is amazing. I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the most painful, horrible thing I think I've ever gone through. Until they become what they're called to be. And then they look back and go, if you hadn't done that, I'd still be that thing and not who I am today.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, like I said, you're always going to look back and have a testimony. Did I refuse to be sharpened and stayed what I was? Or did I allow myself to be cut and hammered and sanded and to become who I'm supposed to be?
So that's a picture of really an ultimate conflict. Right.
Yes.
To forge something is conflict.
Yes.
So when we have men in our lives who are forging us, sharpening us, we need conflict. But in an earlier episode, you and I were talking about conflicting towards something.
Always towards something. There's got to be a purpose.
Right. Just to have conflict, just for me to call something out and you just to irritate you. I don't want you doing that.
Well, and it's that whole, do I want to be right or do I want to be connected?
Right.
Am I going with you to a place so that we can be connected so that we can get somewhere?
Yeah.
Or am I just trying to prove, hey, you're wrong, I'm right?
Yeah. So we need the men in our lives who can say, Eddie, this is who you are over here.
Yes.
This is where you're going. And I'm going to clash with you if necessary.
Yes.
I'm going to hammer you. I'm going to put you into the fire because I love you enough to get you there.
Yes. Yeah, because if I don't care about you, I'll be okay with anything you decide.
That's right.
But if I truly have a relationship with you, it's like, yeah, but I know who you're supposed to be.
That's so good.
And I know what you're doing well or what you're not doing well. And I'm going to let you know that. And when you build up that relationship, you get that level of trust and you've earned it. You can be honest without fear of there being like a negative response.
Yeah.
Because if I were you to tell me to tell you, if I'd be like, hey, I don't think this is good. You're not going to be like, what do you know? It's like, okay, let me process that one.
That's right. Someone I trust says that he doesn't think this is good.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I agree.
They may be right. They may be wrong. I may agree. I may not.
Right.
But I'm not going to swipe it away. I'm going to say, okay, let's get the grinding wheel out.
That's right.
And grind this thing down and figure out where we are.
And if we have relationship, I'll sit with you and I'll say, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Why isn't this not good? What do you see that I'm not seeing?
Yep. And then, like I said, this is a foundational part. If it's one way, it's never going to happen.
No.
It says iron sharpens iron. It's a two-way sharpening.
Yeah.
There's going to be friction, heat, and removal of material on both sides.
Yeah.
So if I'm unwilling to let you speak into my life, I won't have a voice into yours. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's what inhibits a lot of men. It's like, hey, I can tell any guy what he needs to hear.
Yeah.
But I refuse to hear myself, then you don't really have a voice.
In these relationships, it's important to clarify this too, is that these relationships aren't always about clashing, obviously. No. There's a resting time and there's so we don't want to just be all, banging against each other. And that should go without saying. However, I think that going back to your analogy and you're talking about pruning, towards something, that there's somebody still in there.
Yes.
And I brought up that statistic saying that a man is most influential in his decade of his 60s.
That's an amazing. I didn't realize that year. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if we got men in their early 50s, we need to be challenging and encouraging and helping and pointing them, saying, your best is truly yet to come if you choose to do so.
Yes. Yeah.
What
we're doing, not having engagement by the older population, is they're relinquishing the call of their life on this part of their life. Yeah. Because there is wisdom. There are three types of wisdom. There's divine wisdom, there's observed wisdom, observational wisdom, and there's experienced wisdom. Mm. Experienced wisdom is valued the most in any culture because you've lived it, you've walked it, I received that. Yeah. Observed wisdom is I've learned by watching you. Not always is received the same, but there is a value to it. Divine wisdom depends on where your faith lies. So experiential wisdom in any culture is regarded as one of the most important things in a culture. In almost every other culture in the world, when you get to a certain age, you are highly regarded because of you've lived a life. You don't even have to be really exceptional at anything, but you've lived a life and you have wisdom to give to a generation. By not having, especially in our culture, a generation that begins to turn off the lights and sit in one room instead of actually showing what their life actually experienced, we're letting down that second generation, the generation that needs to hear from us. Yeah. It's like we need men to actually say, I have more purpose in my latter days of a place of influence because of the life I've lived.
Yeah. It's so good. Yeah. We need to be tethered to that, right?
Yes.
If we're really going to be healthy. I think that sometimes we believe a lie saying, I've outgrown or outlived my usefulness, and that is such a lie,
Yeah.
because, I have a saying for guys who feel like maybe they failed. You might be a guy listening and you might be in your 50s or 60s and you're like, I haven't accomplished much, or your brokenness, your failures, your sins, your weaknesses don't disqualify you. They uniquely qualify you.
And they prepare another person
That's
to
right.
step into something without having to experience the same depth of
That's
things.
right. That's right.
And I mean, it would be a sad thing for people to start to feel like I don't have anything else or I've not achieved. If you haven't achieved something, then get up and figure out the seed that hasn't been germinated and achieve it, because you're not called to just stop partway through your life.
No.
If you don't feel like you've achieved something, figure out what you're supposed to achieve and go achieve it.
Absolutely. That's my hope in this conversation, is that we can inspire guys to daydream again.
Oh, yeah.
To take some risks.
Take risk, man.
Come on.
What's the worst thing that could happen? You fail. Thank God
And
for
all
failure.
of you failed a bunch.
Thank God for failure.
That's right. Right? I mean, really, what's the worst thing that can happen? I mean, and yet we have guys who just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to end that way.
My wife said something to me a while back, and I needed it. As a man, I was starting to turn the lights off in the house, just starting to check down.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I've tried a bunch of things. I failed a bunch. I'm kind of like, maybe I'm just not supposed to pursue certain things. And I was just sharing that with her. We talked very openly. And she's like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, if we use this money, I mean, I don't know. What's the worst? Lose the house, we're homeless, like that. She goes, all right. And the way she did it, I was like, but you wouldn't be okay with that. She goes, oh, I would hate that. But if that's the worst that could happen, we'd get through it. It was just such a refreshing, wow, that really isn't that bad.
Well, it's funny because, I can speak to people who are facing so much, right? And I can say at age 60, I lost everything I had.
Yeah.
I mean, not my kids, but I lost everything.
Right.
I was out of ministry. I lost my house. I was bankrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, I had zero. I had nothing, And look at 6 years later, the influence.
You're thriving.
I'm thriving, And it's not about finances. It's the influence. It's the impact. It's the legacy that I'm,
Yeah. Well, you are living what men need to live.
Yeah.
You're living your best life.
Yeah.
I love it's part of your tagline, but it's true.
Yeah.
There's a truth to that. You are stepping into like, okay, I don't care what's happened. I've got more in me.
Way more.
Yeah.
Way more. So anyway, this has been so much fun.
Thanks so much, David.
I'm so glad that you came here.
I've been appreciating this.
We're gonna try to hook you guys up with some links in down below to Eddie's stuff, and as you get eddietate.com going, you'll be back. We're gonna get you back here. We're gonna do some more things together. So if you do us a favor, if you comment, if you'd like, if you'd subscribe, share this. We want to get this message out to more and more guys and women to really invest in themselves and make the next third the best third. See you next time. Come on.
This was great.
So good.
This is great.